Hello and welcome back to the Decaf Bubble podcast with me, Abby. Today I am doing a little stream of consciousness reflection about my experience of going to the flower exhibit at the Saatchi gallery. So I went to the Saatchi gallery yesterday with some amazing creative soul sisters. We had a little girls trip and we went to see the flower exhibit. This podcast is not going to be like a review or a critique of the exhibit itself, although I am going to be talking about it, but it was more like I just really felt a desire to share some key thoughts and reflections I had about myself through going to this exhibition. And I just feel like they're very, they could be helpful perspectives, helpful thoughts or provocations for you guys, regardless of, what your creativity is, what kind of artist you are. These are just kind of like universal creative principles that I'm going to be talking about. So we went to the Saatchi gallery yesterday. First of all, it was a beautiful day. It was it was a very idyllic experience. It was a very sensual experience. Like, we obviously chose the exhibition because of the flowers, and it's just so feminine and colourful, and just like there's such a deep spiritual and symbolic significance of flowers. They kind of bring you open and bring your heart open, and so that was just, overall, it was just such a nourishing day, and to be there with friends, with women, it was heaven. So highly recommend organising a girls trip to go and see this exhibition, or just go and do a little artist date. But yeah, what was I going to start with? So I think the first reflection that I had, this is like the key reflection that I had about myself going through this exhibition. We started in this first room. I don't even know if this was part of the flower exhibition, although the artist did actually have a piece in the exhibition. But there was this one room with all of these artworks by this artist called Anne von Freyberg. And we were just obsessed. We were just so obsessed with her art. It's just like this very intricately woven fabric, like kind of stuffed fabric pieces that are modelled on like famous art portraits, but she's just done them in her own way with all this like tasseling. It's like very patchworky, but it was just so gorgeous. We were obsessed, and every piece was so different. Every piece had such a different energy, but it was just so unique, and just it was amazing. And we were just like getting really giddy and just kind of like enraptured by her artwork in this first room. It was just a really big room with all her pieces around the walls, and there was this one central piece in the middle that we were just obsessed with, and we were like saying it's all of our energies, all of our aesthetics like mixed together, because it was such a it was such a melding of so many different colours and aesthetics, and it was amazing. So that was the first room, and then after that we went through the actual flower exhibition. So I don't think that first room was part of it, but it was just happened to be her exhibition at the same time. And as soon as we got into the rest of the exhibition, so the way they'd organised it was each room had a kind of like unifying theme. So they had like kind of more historical, like older art movements, and then they had kind of like modern art. Then they had like a whole room of photography and sculpture. They had a whole room with like fashion and textiles. And as I walked through these rooms, we kind of all split off and just did our own thing. And I was like walking through these rooms, and I was just immediately feeling myself getting very overstimulated and a little bit like overwhelmed. And so, and I think that was also because it was the weekend and there were a lot of people around, but I just immediately remembered something about my own personal aesthetic, which I have identified before. I do a lot of reflection on personal aesthetic. It's a big part of my work. Like if you've done any of my courses or workshops, I talk a lot about personal aesthetic and just really knowing it, like knowing your own DNA, knowing your own fingerprint, like what brings you alive and what just kind of you don't resonate with. And one of the things I really resonate with in art is just coherence, like something being very unified and really like organized in a way that makes sense to me and my taste. And as I was walking through this curated exhibition of many, many, many different artists, all with different completely different worlds, completely different reference points, and then all of their pieces being unified in this exhibition by the theme of flowers, it was just too much for me. It was just too much. The experience was so aesthetically displeasing to me. It created chaos in my system, even though as I walked through, there were so many things that I could logically feel. That doesn't make sense. I could logically know that I liked it. Like I was drawn to things. I was drawn to many things, and particularly like the really big pieces because they were very dominant in the space, right? But the way that, and this isn't like a critique of the exhibition because obviously, you know, this is like quite common. Like this is what art curation is. It is a art form in itself to curate many different types of many different pieces of art together through one theme, and how you place it and the story and the order you tell that in. That's an art form in itself. However, I know it's an art form in itself. I don't resonate with it. I can't think of a single time, and to be fair, look, I don't go to galleries like a huge amount or museums, but I don't think I can remember ever having the experience of going to a curated exhibition and like really aesthetically enjoying it. When I say aesthetically enjoying it, what I mean is being in my body and having a very physical, sensual, alive experience of the art. So I'll tell you instead what happens to me when I go through an exhibition like that is I go into my head. I go into my head because my brain is trying to organize everything I'm seeing rather than being able to drop in and experience it like on the feminine level, on the body level. It's very masculine because my brain is just kind of like looking at these things and sorting them, organizing them, and also making like decisions, you know, like the kind of like micro decisions you make as you move through a exhibition, because you're like, oh, what am I going to spend more time with? What am I going to spend less time with? Because what it feels like to me is scrolling. Like that's what it feels like to me. It feels like scrolling someone's Instagram or scrolling just a home feed with an algorithm, and the algorithm is like, oh yeah, we think you might like this, but what it actually is like a hodgepodge. It's a hodgepodge. What is the season of Drag Race where they say hodgepodge? I just feel like every time I say that word now, I just think of Drag Race. But yeah, it's a hodgepodge. Like I don't like that. That doesn't turn me on artistically, creatively. It's not like, it doesn't give me eros. It doesn't give me sensuality. I can't drop into any of the art. I'm just there moving through being like, oh, yes, I like that. And then, yeah, there are moments where you see a piece and you're like, oh, yeah, and you can just zone into that one piece and you can kind of connect with it and connect with the world of that artist. But then the environment that you're in isn't conducive to staying in that world, because immediately your eye catches 10 other things with 10 other completely different aesthetic worlds. And so this really got me, it started, you know, conversations that I was having with my friends who were there, and just in my own head, I was just really thinking about the energy of the artist, the aura of the artist is so important. Who you are as an artist is your energetic aura, right? And your universe, your creative universe. And when somebody else experiences your art, they get to step into your creative universe. So really, just to be a creative visionary of any kind, or an artist, or even an entrepreneur, or whatever it is that you're creating, you are inviting people to step into your world. And when they step into your world, they're experiencing your aesthetic taste, they're experiencing your references, they're experiencing your experiences, your past, your future, even. Like, they're experiencing everything about you because they're literally in your aura. And I'm not saying they're consciously registering all of that information, but they're experiencing it on a deep level. And so that's why it can feel amazing to experience an artist who you love, because going into their aura feels really good to you, because you resonate with it. You have coherence with their energy. Your energy is mixing well with their energy, and you like it, right? So, and a point I made yesterday when we were talking about it is like, to be a very realized artist, like, for me, the definition of a very realized, self-realized artist is somebody who knows their own world very well. They know their own creative world. They know their universe. They know their taste. They know what they like. They're experiencing their own uniqueness. And then they're able to grow that, like to have a certain level of robustness that they can invite other people into their aura. Because if you are less realized, if you are less robust, all that means is that when other people perceive you, your aura is affected. Like, when other people start to look at you, you're like, oh, actually, I don't know, maybe not. Like, you know, and you have that energy where you're kind of like shrinking back in, rather than holding this frame of like, here's my universe, like, come on in, you know. And we've all experienced that, because that's what successful self-realized artists do. So you know what I'm talking about, right? But the very good ones, the really iconic ones, they live in a very unique world. It's very, very true to them, very authentic from their energy. And through artists who live in that world, every single thing they do has a place in their world. It has coherence, it has a thread that runs through. Even if every piece they make is incredibly different, even if every project they have has a very different energy, or has a very different tone or subject matter, or even form, like they might make a film and then write a book and then write a musical, and then, you know, but there's coherence through everything they do. That's almost undefinable. It's like almost you can't even put your finger quite on it. And that's the mark of a real true artist, in my opinion. That's my definition. So back to the exhibition. So my experience of the first room was like heaven. Like, we were getting so giddy. We were like taking pictures. Every single piece made us feel different. We were all being like, oh, whose energy is in this one? Whose aesthetic is more in each piece? And like, and that's my one, that's your one, you know. And like, but we were like in our artist selves in that moment. We were in our playful inner child, like in our bodies. And then I'm not saying like everybody wasn't in their body in the main exhibition, but for me, certainly I was much more in my head. And then there was another room that was just one artist, and let me just check what her name was, because I don't want to I don't want to not credit. So Rebecca Louise Law and her piece, it was just one piece. It was La Fleur Morte, which means, well, the dead flower. And it was just this incredible installation of dried flowers, just all woven together with this very, very fine, delicate copper thread. And the flowers were hanging down in like all these different arrangements, hanging down in like tendrils, and you could walk through them, and the lighting in the space was all, specifically creating this atmosphere. And so we'd just been through maybe like 3 or 4 rooms, and I was feeling like very overstimulated, very like tired, very drained. That will happen to me quickly if I'm overstimulated. Like, I am a human design projector. People being in my space, like, it's very draining for me. And so I, like, through that experience of just kind of like so much art, so many different artists, I was feeling this sense of disharmony in my system, in my own aura. And then when we came into this room with this installation, my aura was instantly re-harmonized. There was coherence again in my system from being in that atmosphere. So I was like walking through, I was in my body again. We were all smiling, we were all laughing and like just experiencing the art, not thinking about it, not like commenting or analysing or making decisions of what we liked and what we didn't like. We were just in the artist's world. We were in her bubble. We were in her aura. For me, that is literally essential. Like, if I'm experiencing art, I want to be in my body. I want to be experiencing the art through being in the artist's aura. I don't like the feeling of like standing back and looking at it with an analytical. And again, I'm not saying like everybody is going to experience art that way, because I know people can go through exhibitions and just sit with one piece and be very moved, or just really enjoy. Some people really enjoy the feeling of like having loads of different things for them. So of course, I'm not saying my way is the only way to experience art, but it was just so good to have this reminder for me and just be like, this is how I like to experience art. I like to feel like I'm in someone's home. I like to feel the whole experience, the sound, the smell, the touch, the lighting. Like, I want the whole thing to just feel like it's enveloping me. And really, after being in that room, it was like my whole system revived. Like, I felt like I had energy again. I kind of thought, oh, cool, well, that's the end. And then there was like a whole other floor with other rooms. And by this point, I just knew I'm full. Like, I've had enough. I feel so good from being in this installation. I'm just going to go and just wait and it's no rush, but like, I'll just wait for my friends to finish that exhibition. And that was another point I wanted to make, which is sometimes we feel like we have to finish everything. We have to see every last piece of something in order to have got something from it. But I really felt complete, and I just felt like if I carry on, like, I'm just gonna lose the coherence that I found again. So yeah, that was just a really nice other reminder that like there's nothing more important than following your internal compass. Like, FOMO is such a lie. Like, you're not going to take something in unless you're receptive to taking it in. So you might as well just take in what you want to take in. And if you feel like you've reached your capacity, then hold the space, leave some space, Yeah, so that was my experience. But just talking about auras, talking about the energy aura, all of these awarenesses to do with energy are like very foundational for how I teach, how I facilitate, like how I create myself. And I am teaching a class on just foundations of the aura, because I talk a lot about the aura. I bring little things, like I bring aura cleansing into my workshops. That's something we always do at the start of Cocoon, but I've never really explicitly taught on it before. So I'm doing a aura basics class workshop as part of the Bubble membership, which is my artists membership community. But I've decided I'm going to open that class to the public because I feel like this is just so beneficial for particularly sensitive, feminine, neurodivergent, creative, just highly sensitive people to really understand this. And I think maybe it can seem a bit overwhelming when people talk about the aura. They think I'm going to go off in a very esoteric direction. Obviously it is esoteric, but I think I pride myself as being someone who's quite down to earth as well as spiritual, and I'm very passionate about making things simple, because I think simple is just elegant and simple is the most powerful and potent way of understanding something. So I've kind of got my simplified way of working with energy, working with the aura. So I will be teaching this class on the 27th of April at 5 p.m. I will put a link in the description for you to purchase the ticket for that individual workshop, or if you want to join the bubble, you get that workshop included in the bubble membership, but you also get 2 work in progress circles, another workshop, and all the workshop replays that I've done so far in the bubble, plus meditations and creative exercises like audios on demand. So there's a lot of stuff in the bubble, and it's a community, it's a growing community of artists, so there's that aspect as well. So yeah, and then final thing that I will plug is the next round of Cocoon, which is starting on the 21st of April. And I recommend joining Cocoon if you are in any kind of crossroads, any kind of place where you're just kind of needing to pause and just fill your cup and just collect yourself, collect your ideas, spend some time just reflecting and just thinking and feeling into where you are now, what you want to create now, removing the shoulds, removing all of the stuff out of your field that is just not helping your creative evolution anymore, and just really connect with what's real and what's growing now, and just holding that space for that to emerge. Which so often we're kind of pushed through that process too quickly, and we're not given, or maybe we just don't give ourselves the time to just really be in that dark unknown. We prioritize the process, we prioritize finding the pleasure again, finding the playfulness, finding your spark, and just taking the pressure off the outcome, which inevitably always leads to really interesting outcomes. So yeah, all of the links will be in the description. I hope you're good. I will speak to you in the next episode. Goodbye.